wrap up the exciting, this is apparently the story of the week right here. Hit national news. To tune us in once again, I'm glad you've joined us on Monday, 3D Politics Live right here on Facebook. I'm Tom McKay, your host. I've got David Van, David Oldham, and David D'Ambroso, all three of the most important Davids right here in the state of Oklahoma. So we all know from this Kiefer officer received a Starbucks coffee. His coffee cup had the word pig printed on the label. So we've got the N word we can't use, we've got the F word we can't use, and of course now we won't be able to use the P word.
Well, so I'm confused. Is that his name or what? Why
no, from Glenpool, Oklahoma. This is a story from KTUL. Ethan Hutchins from Thursday.
It was from every news.
And around the world. Reading from KTUL TV. A photo of a coffee cup is going viral after a Kiefer police officer bought some Starbucks for his dispatchers, only to see the word pig printed on the label. It was a quick trip to get coffee that left Kiefer Police Chief Johnny O'Mara with a bad taste in his mouth.
Yeah,
Look,
no,
there's some clever writing there.
Yeah, but the police chief was
Can't
not.
believe they use the term quick trip. Sorry.
Yeah, the police chief was not the one who went to get the coffee. It was one of his officers.
And this wasn't the police chief that was murdered in Florida, obviously, because he's dead.
that was Sand Springs.
His officer, talking about Police Chief Johnny O'Mara's officer, had stopped by the Starbucks in Glenpool to grab 5 cups of coffee. Boy, a lot of detail in your story.
Yeah, that's right.
Did they all say pig?
We know at least one did.
This little piggy wants creamer. This little piggy wants sugar. Sorry.
This is a children's story. Lighten up, guys.
You should be sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh. So he stopped by, got 5 cups of coffee for his dispatchers, for all his dispatchers working on Thanksgiving.
Sure.
But when the officer picked up the cups, the word pig was printed on them. After seeing the cups, O'Mara called and spoke to the Starbucks manager. He said they offered to reprint the cups if the officer brought them back, which was not the kind of apology the chief was looking for.
Oh, they would have loved to claim back all of the evidence of this, because this became a national scandal. Yeah.
Well, because he then proceeded to put it all over social.
So then he took to social media.
That's right.
The photo took off. Tulsa's Channel 8 reached out to Starbucks, and the manager on duty referred them to the corporate message. Jory Mendez with Starbucks from the corporate said, "This is absolutely unacceptable, and we are deeply sorry to the law enforcement officer who experienced this. We have also apologized directly to him, and we are working to connect with the police chief as well as to express our remorse. The barista has been suspended pending the outcome of our investigation into this matter. This language is offensive to all law enforcement and is not representative of the deep appreciation we have for police officers who work tirelessly to keep our communities safe."
Mm-hmm. And give you tickets for license violations and things like that.
And the police, though, never call people vermin supreme, though, do they?
Wasn't in the video, I kind of think of, sort of in relation to this, the Bates guy. Was it, well, maybe it wasn't Bates. I feel like it was the felon that was illegally selling ammunition because he was a felon out here in Tulsa. It might have been Bates that actually shot the guy in the back. He's like saying, I can't breathe. And
no, that was the.
And the cop goes, one of them goes, expletive, F your breath. And so it's like, it's free speech. You can call the guy snowflake if you didn't like some cop saying F your breath or you're a thug or you're disgusting scum or whatever. I mean, it's free speech, It's unfortunate. Now, they're not free from the consequences. If the Starbucks barista printed this, they're going to face quite a backlash. But,
sure.
Constitutionally, it's speech.
Well,
sometimes we don't like what other people say.
Constitutionally, it's stupid for business.
Oh,
yeah. Do you want to alienate a large percentage of your business by alienating police officers and things like that? And looking at the comments and so forth, and I put up a thing last night because there's more to the story that we haven't gotten to yet, but because Chief O'Mara put out that he was offended with the pig reference and
Sure.
everything like that. His daughter went to Twitter and said her father is very definitely a pig in all the definitions of the word.
Thickens.
Which has nothing to do with this story.
No, but when you live in
Yeah,
glass houses,
but you can't help yourself, can you?
no, that's
It's directly related.
No, how is it? How
Well,
is
all
it?
Because this is the guy.
Okay, I'll
She
tell you
claims-
what.
she
I'm
claims that
sorry,
he's
you
not
saying what's the guy?
Okay,
This is the police chief, is it not? That made
No.
the statement.
that's
Yes.
the reason.
The term pig was made to a different officer.
But was it his officer under his?
And he
Command?
was the police chief was the one who said, "Here's what they just did to my officer."
Right. So it's a
Okay.
connection. But
No,
they're
it
connected.
isn't. No, the
His
fact that
department, a reference of the officer of the department. Now it's just someone's opinion.
hey, if you act like a pig, should I call your dad a pig?
Okay, hold on.
Of course
The
not.
reason you're trying to say that the daughter's public statements
Yeah.
are not relative, rational.
I'm saying
Or-
the daughter was not.
Right. She's not referencing the person who's called.
She's
a
not.
pig.
Yeah, exactly.
I see what you're saying,
That's the point, and
it
it
is
does not.
tangentially connected
It does
to
not in any way justify the insult that was directly
Nobody
made
said that it
from
was.
the barista to the officer
that- nobody-
picking up the
that-
coffee.
No,
And-
correct.
and that's-
in no way
That's fine, but
justifies
nobody
that.
who made
No.
that claim.
The fact that you've got a family that's dysfunctional and some kid saying, oh, my dad's a jerk, like, when has that not happened?
Sure,
You know?
my kids.
Exactly. But nonetheless, it
It
does
is kind
happen.
of extreme to
Then
come
what
out on
you're
social
doing-
media
now,
when
okay.
your dad's being attacked by strangers, and then say, even though he wasn't the one called pig, it was his officer under his command. It is kind of extreme to come out and say, "You're right." I mean, typically your family bands together. Like I might criticize my family member, but
Not
if some
if you-
stranger does, I
Yeah.
come to their defense. It's
Yeah.
weird.
I know, but how many broken families are there in this state?
Two.
It's one of the worst.
Too many.
Okay, and I'm just saying, when you have broken families, a lot of times kids end up taking sides in divorces, and
Well, nobody should
or
be
it
shopping
could
at
be-
Starbucks anyways.
Okay,
So,
but
going back full circle.
my point is the fact that
We're all
you've
bad.
got an estranged relationship between father and daughter has nothing to do with the actions of that Starbucks
Well,
employee.
I think there's a bigger
It's
story to the
tangential.
whole thing that is getting overlooked in the whole thing.
What?
And it happens with the whole Blue Lives Matter and the thin blue line and the knee-jerk reaction just to defend cops is and mind you, I do not want to be the guy who's ragging on cops all the time. But the problem is they deserve it.
Well, you're
And
making a gross generalization here.
But here's my point: is the term "pig" is back.
Mhm.
Okay, from the '60s,
Yep.
it is back, and it is back with a vengeance.
Yes, it is.
And it's back for a reason.
Mhm.
And that's because the cops are not acting in accord with the Constitution.
That's part of
And
it.
if they were doing that, then I guarantee you
Oh God.
that we will not be having
There's
these kinds
no
of
way you can make that guarantee.
And,
Oh,
and the
we could be
demonization.
here
Well,
as
the
long as we.
demonization could not stand right now.
Well,
It
and
perfectly
the
stands.
reason why it's out there is it gets promulgated by a media who is the PR division of the leftist Democratic Party, and it fits their agenda.
As long
That's
as there
the
are.
only reason why it's
and-
allowed to be such a popular
And,
discourse.
to quote J.C. Watts about the race-baiting poverty pimps that are out there who will stoke the flames of racial unrest and a division between the citizens and the cops, because there are some people whose careers are built on
Yeah.
stoking
Sure.
those flames.
Sure.
So you can't guarantee that they're going to go away because
No,
their
no, no, no.
income is dependent upon keeping that a
that's
perpetual
true, but
My point is that all you have to do is start looking at the justice system and look at
Mhm.
all the people who are
Absolutely.
there
Yes.
and are having their rights violated
Yes.
by the very system that's meant to
Yes.
secure their rights.
Especially,
Now,
yeah.
mind you, they are all there. Every last one of them are there because of a cop.
Yeah.
violating his oath of office.
I get
Okay.
that.
Well, it goes back to the
and there's no cop who's setting these cops aright and dealing with them as they need to be done by firing and arresting them for violating
And
our
we've sort of
rights.
addressed this before, and I mean, you bring up some valid points, but then also my counterpoint in defense of police officers is that, they are not attorneys. They are not constitutional law scholars.
They don't take your oath.
They are. Well,
Don't
does
take the
your
oath.
does your oath require an absolute knowledge of a myriad of scholarly topics?
The
or
Constitution is
fields?
not that difficult. It's 4 pages long.
Okay.
I mean,
not that
all
difficult.
right.
Well,
All right. It's written in cursive.
the
You know
implementation,
that?
the implementation
I
of
forgot
it.
that.
Yeah, it's a
You
lot
know
harder
what?
than you
I,
think.
I had to say, I listened to Pat Campbell this morning, had a police officer on, and he says, look, you've got to differentiate between somebody making a mistake, because officers do make mistakes,
I
in
agree.
what is a malicious intent to deprive somebody of their civil rights. And you've got to separate those two, because both exist.
Except it does not matter intent. There is no ignorance is no excuse before the law.
Unless
And
you're
we
Hillary
have
Clinton.
we have a supreme law
But at this point,
before which you cannot claim innocence, and especially not when you are a law enforcement officer. You cannot get away with that. You are doubly responsible.
Okay.
You are more responsible than somebody who
Okay,
doesn't know.
I
it.
get you.
So
but-
if you're driving, Mr. Oldham, through Halbert, and you inadvertently fail to
Slow down to 25.
No, I'm talking about, let's just pick some weird city ordinance that the average person driving through town would not know of this ordinance. Okay? Let's say you parallel parked, but instead of being less than a foot from the curb, they say now you got to be 3 inches from the curb, and you were only 7 inches from the curb. Okay? And you can say, I did not know you had that ordinance. And they say,
Well,
ignorance of the law is no excuse.
That's
Well, we're not
literally
talking-
what's your point? That happens all the time.
I'm saying
that's-
you got to apply it to everybody.
Okay.
But
Of
the
the
point
state.
is, but
I
the
don't
point,
think
in fact,
Oldham's not
I was
saying
I was just reading an article from Edwin Meese, who started the war on drugs, but now is decrying the over criminalization of
Right.
turning
Yes.
innocents into criminals.
Yes.
My point is that there is a spirit behind the law for which we cannot, we are guilty, and there is no excuse. All the myriad stupidity of the
hundreds of
the
thousands of
statutes,
laws that
yes,
exist. Hundreds of thousands.
is ridiculous, and of those we are naturally going to be. I've been told both ways in Tulsa that you can make a U-turn at a light and you can't. So which is it? State law says you can.
Depends
but
on
then
what
a judge
day.
said you can't.
It depends
and
on what day,
Tulsa
who
said you
observes
can't.
it, and who has the will to prosecute you.
Exactly.
That
And that's my
determines
point.
if you
And so,
are going to
So
suffer
the point
punishment.
is that there is the true law of which you
And
you
then
have
there
a
is
duty
the
to know
high
and you
level
know.
of subjectivity in which the law is executed.
I
Well,
just
no,
say,
there's the true law. What I mean
and
is the spirit
can
behind
you
it.
agree with me on this? We should have one standard that applies to everybody.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. I'll stay with that.
I agree.
You know,
Okay.
out of
Including
the weeds,
cops.
Yes.
out of the weeds, and back to the story
Yeah.
of what is rational behavior with people who matter in the story. So O'Mara, the police chief, wasn't at the place when the infraction occurred,
Right.
and his officer didn't notice that the word pig had been printed on there. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Who
It was
noticed it?
discovered at some point.
Who did the noticing?
Well,
Another
Who's the
story
noticer?
I heard was that the officer came and showed his chief that. That's where I.
okay, all right. So one way or the other, the infraction, i.e., pig on the cup, which is not correct. You shouldn't call people pigs, whether they're officers or not. What
It's a moral infraction,
What if she
not
was
a legal
big,
one.
Hey, what if she was a big fatty
Where's
and
Rosie O'Donnell?
they wrote pig on there? Okay, well, was she not
call her
a?
a
Would she?
Yeah.
Would she social media this? They call me a pig. You guys don't care what I'm saying. So the point is, my whole suggestion when I first heard about this was that if there was any adult in the room, this would have been handled when the cup was handed over and it said pig on it. But apparently we didn't notice with our detective eyes that we'd been called a name until we got all the way back to the office. And then, instead of me, the officer, say, going back and dealing with it, I had to tell Daddy. So I had to tell the police chief, look this, Starbucks called me a pig. Mm-hmm. And so now O'Mara calls the manager. Mm-hmm. And officially he says he didn't like that they printed the word. Mm-hmm. Now, what the manager said, apparently he spoke to the manager, and then the manager, he said, they're saying that the manager said, he would reprint the cups. That is actually, legalistically, a proper response. Okay?
A smart response.
Sorry you don't like what we printed on there. It says later in the story it was meant as a joke.
Did the manager know it was meant as a joke?
The officer received the cup, said the employee so the employee who doesn't want to have himself arrested for no reason.
That's such a stupid explanation, by the way. Sorry, it was just a joke.
It was a joke. Have you ever worked anywhere with coworkers where we joke about?
Well, I know, but in the statement, it's not. I mean, it's. I'm just. My small point is, it's kind of stupid to admit that was.
No, it was a good move by the employee to reach out to the police officer who might pull him over later and say, "Hey, man, I'm sure sorry I called you a pig."
No argument there. I'm just saying that element of it, he could have left. He wasn't doing himself any favors.
I'm going to respond to several things so far, and then let's go on. One, the fact that he didn't notice. Keep in mind, when you're getting half a dozen cups, you know, they're probably in a container. You're going to set it down. And I'm saying the reason he didn't notice it till he got back is, of course, not.
Understandable. Okay, that's not.
But then the next thing is the officer, it's not his job to make a response. You go to the head. That's why he's the chief. The official position is determined by and stated by the chief. So that's why it was the chief who took the responsibility there.
I don't have a problem with that.
And then the third thing is that manager Starbucks did exactly what management and corporate will tell you. Get the evidence. Get them to bring those back.
Are you kidding me? I think the Starbucks manager was being a smart ass, saying, "Oh yeah, you have a problem. Come back. I'll put whatever you want on."
Well, I get that, but what I'm saying is, if I'm corporate, I'm telling that manager, by God, get that evidence.
Right? Are you kidding me?
I agree.
But you should also be giving them lots of free coffee.
Yeah, yes, and I would have said the corporate to manager, you drive down there and offer them coupons for a month of free coffee, by God.
And donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts. I'm trying to make the parallel of what O'Mara would expect if there were an analogy or parallel.
Yeah, this is
so let's say that some Starbucks employee has a problem, and then they call and don't get the response they want from the police chief, and then they just post it on social media. Is that what the chief would want? Well, what I'm saying is, my attitude is that O'Mara should have been more professional instead of acting like a teenage porn revenge routine and and gone ahead. And if the manager of the store doesn't give you the answer you want, why are you posting on social media like a teenager?
I'm going to Joe
Why don't you go to the Starbucks head office? Why don't you be professional and take it up the chain professionally?
I see what you're saying. I responded to a comment in the chat. Just I said, it said evidence of what? So it's evidence of the action, right? Evidence that it was written on the cup.
Right,
that's what he's talking about.
Well, at that point, I don't know that it was posted on social media in there. So yeah, they would have liked to have collected all those cups. Quietly done it.
Well,
I guarantee you, Starbucks this is costing them in the 5 figures, maybe 6 figures already nationally, just in the corporate goodwill that you get with community.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of the analysis here.
Maybe, yeah.
This is, we get the hypocrisy card thrown at us occasionally. Our side, loosely. I know there are people that are hyper specific about some things. Oldham. But generally, the people that have our general dispositions towards things are more consistent. This is an area where sometimes we're not consistent. Yeah, you call the cop a mean name. We typically like cops, on average, way more than the left does. Yeah. We're guilty. We're all guilty of that. But if we're going to call someone a snowflake for getting their feelers hurt, because they heard the word that they didn't like.
Okay,
We're
well,
kind
so I
of
guess
gonna
what
have to
the
go to
two-
the same place here, right?
To
It was a word, and you can react however you want to a word.
The reason I think it's more displeasurable that the cop uses this social media platform is because the idea of doxing someone or having to display their negative actions through a social media shame campaign is because the state has the power. And all we can do is post our little videos, but the cops have the power. He doesn't need to use the people's choice of limited Facebook posts. He could have just gone behind the channels quietly like a professional instead of a teenager and just called Starbucks and handled it professionally.
He could have, but at the same time, he has the same right as any other private
there you
citizen.
go.
Sure he does.
He does. Keep in mind, this was not a violation of statutory code.
It's fine.
This is
I sort of get-
marketplace. This is community decency, and this is calling
So,
out.
You made a good
Okay,
analogy
then the
though. So, but I think if you didn't explicitly say it, you were knocking right on that door. Well, then don't be mad when the reverse happens.
Right.
And then the public, don't decry when the public is uploading that Facebook Live video of some cop that does something. You're saying, well, you didn't see the half hour before that.
Yeah.
He said a mean thing, and that caused him to violate his rights. I mean,
And to finalize your point right there, don't get upset when your daughter, who hates your guts, posts on there too, because it's a public forum.
That's
Bitches.
called
You
karma.
can just get ready for everybody's
I
comment.
guess that's a great point. You
Yeah,
open it up.
that
If
is-
you
You
didn't make a
wanna
public
throw it out
comment.
there, I might comment.
Well, and
Anybody can
you know
go.
what's
So-
really interesting is O'Mara's posts are gone. You cannot find anything about
Because
this
he
anymore.
got hit with it. Well, I mean, two
I think the
biblical
backlash
points, and I
happened
think
to the police department as well.
my Wi-Fi hotspot's about to die. So 2 points here. Next
Hey,
segment's
it's private
probably.
information, too much.
All right.
Well, it's powering our video right now.
Boom!
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Two things. What biblically, the ultimate source of wisdom is the Bible. Objectively, factually, and I think I could prove that. But you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So you go out there and you're mad and you're redressing grievances, redressing them on social media. The chief gets hit by his daughter at grievances, redressing them against him,
Yeah.
and then he pulled them. And the second thing is the Bible's wisdom, which I think applies to all of us, and I think conservatives will take this better than leftists. It says, take not offense.
Right.
That's our duty. When
Well,
offense is thrown
yeah,
at us,
forgive.
don't
Let me wrap
take
up.
it and forgive.
Let me say this. Those whom you swore an oath to serve and protect, you shouldn't be defaming either. I have been defamed by cops. I think many people have. So yeah, let's just not defame anyone, okay?
It would be nice. Golden rule would solve just about everything.
Yeah, and that's
That's
the Bible
about
too.
it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in and once again to 3D Politics. David Van, David Oldham, and David D'Ambroso. I'm your host right here for 3D Politics. We'll see you again next week on Monday night at 7 p.m.